Okay, it says I'm live now. I always try to pause for a moment because there is always a delay, and when I start talking right away, a lot of times it cuts off the beginning. And I want to make sure we don't lose any piece of this. But anyway, good morning. Happy Tuesday. It's Coach Jessica. I wanted to hop on really quickly and just reiterate something that's really, really important this week. And it was something that I asked you to do. Hopefully, at this point, everybody's gotten a chance to go and watch Sunday's Zoom call. If you were not on the call, or even if you were, I found it's really helpful to go back and watch and listen to that again. We tend to process things differently when we hear it a second time. So I really encourage that. A lot of times I go back and listen to it again after the fact just because I want to make sure that the important points that I wanted to cover really got through to you. So I know whether I need to re-emphasize something. But one of the things I wanted to make sure that I did was really, really focus on making sure that you know the most important thing for you to do this week, besides communicate and stay connected here in the group, because connection is the opposite of addiction. The most important thing is for you to really start to track your very specific patterns or places or times in your life where you are more vulnerable, more susceptible to giving into wherever you are in your eating disorder. So if you are susceptible to eating off plan or overeating, the other thing we talked about in the group was really, in the Zoom was really identifying what your issue is. So if you've identified that you're an emotional eater and you're a compulsive eater, when are those times, where are those places that you tend to, that compulsion takes over? Because we all know we have those days where we're able to push through and maybe you have that compulsive thought but you don't give into it, and then other times it's like it just takes you over. It feels like it does. I'm going to help you work through how to overcome each one of those times, because the truth is you can overcome every compulsive thought. You can overcome every emotional situation that has caused you to eat in the past. But in order to do that, I described on the Zoom call that it's really like it's like being in a battle, because it is a battle. It happens in our mind. But if we know when we're susceptible, we are ready and armed with tools and skills and abilities that will help us to overcome those moments. If you're not truly aware of the very, very specific times that you are vulnerable, it's like you get blindsided. It's like an enemy attack that you are not prepared for. And I know some of you, I really love that you're sharing in the group some of your triggers. Sometimes we call them triggers. I like to look at them as areas where we're vulnerable, or where we're most vulnerable. I'm going to encourage you to really slow down and don't just speed through this. Your initial thoughts on example, with emotional eating, you might say, well, every emotion makes me want to eat. I'm going to ask you to slow down and really think through, because we have a range of emotions all day, every day, but yet you don't give in to your compulsion all day, every day. What are those strong emotional feelings where you tend to give in? Is it extreme loneliness? We can feel a little bit lonely and maybe not give in, but extreme loneliness causes that. Or so I just want you to dig a little bit deeper on those. And I have to tell you, as someone who's been at this for over 6.5 years, I have found that I'm always uncovering more areas of vulnerability where that enemy thought can come in and just trample over me. And thankfully, and I'm so grateful that I have the skills now to work through that. But I used to say, I wonder why I just gave in. I was feeling so strong yesterday, or I was feeling strong earlier today. And what I realized, and this is what I mean about backtracking, what I realized is I would be triggered by things and I wouldn't realize till after I had given in to a compulsion what the trigger was. So here's my story, just getting real specific. I can recall working through emotional eating, and I always would know that something had triggered me when all of a sudden I would find myself standing in front of the refrigerator with the door open. It's almost like I zombie walked there. Some of you will identify with this. Like all of a sudden you're standing in front of the cabinet door that opened. You don't even remember getting up from where you were sitting and walking over there. So you don't know what emotion or what trigger or what compulsion sent you there. You just know you're standing in front of the refrigerator looking in it. And maybe you do that same thing over the course of hours. Like I've done that same thing like 5 times. Like something new was going to be there. That's a for sure sign that you are searching for something in that refrigerator that has nothing to do with nourishment. But then the question for me would always be like, what sent me here? I don't recall getting triggered. I don't recall a strong emotion. All I know is I was doing something, and the next thing I know, I'm standing here in front of the refrigerator. Well, this is a combination of compulsion because so many times in the past, the refrigerator held what I thought was the answer to my problem. If you have gone to the refrigerator or you've gone to the pantry repeatedly in the past to soothe an emotion, to solve, not really solve, but to get an escape from whatever's going on, you literally can do that on autopilot. Like I said, it's like a zombie walk. You don't even remember walking. It's a repeated behavior, and that part of it is what the compulsion is. I compulsively walk to the refrigerator and I look again, and I look again, and I look again without even mentally thinking, I think I'll go look in the refrigerator and see what's there. It's a repeated pattern of behavior, and that's the compulsive part of it. But for me, as I was working hard to figure these things out about myself, it took me a little bit of time because I couldn't quite rewind. I couldn't remember what caused me to get up and walk to the refrigerator or open the pantry. And then one day, it happened, and I closed the refrigerator door, and I came back, and I realized, I had been sitting here at my desktop, and I had been scrolling through Facebook. And I sat here, and it hit me. The last thing that I had seen before I got up and walked to the refrigerator was a certain person's profile. Now, I realized that this was a person that I had had conflict with in the past, and in my mind, it was resolved. Like I had accepted this person, in this case, was a narcissist, and you can't necessarily fix things with a narcissist. You just have to kind of not play their game. And so I felt like I was in a good place in my relationship with this person because I had just put them kind of over to the side. And because this person was a family member, I didn't feel like I could do something like delete them off Facebook. So I think from time to time when they would post something that got on my nerves or whatever, I would snooze them for 30 days. But in any case, I realized in that moment that the last thing I had seen before I got up and went to the refrigerator was this person's profile. Nothing in particular that they posted, I don't think. It was literally just seeing their picture. And I quickly had scrolled past it, but it triggered something in me. And what it triggered in me was a dis-ease, a feeling of discomfort because I had unresolved conflict with this person. And I realized that many times that's exactly what had happened before I went to the pantry or before I went to the refrigerator. It was literally scrolling through Facebook. And even though I didn't consciously think I have unresolved conflict with this person, that makes me want to push down that feeling, or that makes me want to eat something to take the edge off. My zombie brain, the compulsion took over. It was a feeling of discomfort. And because I had looked in the refrigerator so many times in the past, to try to get rid of feelings of discomfort, my body automatically took me there. So it was a puzzle to solve. Now, once you realize that a person is a trigger for you or an activity is a trigger for you, you have a couple of options, and I'm going to dig into that. In this case, I had to decide to either completely delete this person from my life or take things to another level. Because in my mind, putting this person over to the side and saying, I'm going to just kind of pretend they don't exist except for when they show up and I have to deal with them, that didn't work for me. It was still triggering that disordered sort of thing. I actually had to take it a step further and reach out to this person. And even though I knew they were incapable of returning the same kind of love that I was going to show to them and the same kind of forgiveness I was going to show to them, I had to do that for me. So for me, once I resolved that conflict, that person didn't have the power to make me feel that dis-ease and discomfort, and then that was broken over me. So again, long story to say this. Triggers are deeper than your initial thought. There are many things that send you to the refrigerator. There are many things that cause you to get in the car and go to the grocery store or go to a fast food restaurant. And your initial thoughts about them are just scratching the surface. And so that's why it's so important that you have a journal, that you're tracking these things. Because when I say you list people that trigger you, you may think you don't have any, but I guarantee you do. It could be someone that's not even close in your circle. It could just be every time you see a political post about a certain person, it bothers you and it makes you go eat, and you haven't realized that yet because you don't know what sent you to the refrigerator. So I'm just encouraging you to dig deeper and really identifying these places where you are very vulnerable is a process. It's not something you can quickly go through. You can name maybe the top ones. I haven't talked about this in this group, so I will. The top triggers tend to be allowing yourself to get too hungry, too angry, too anxious, too lonely, or too tired. If you think about it, that spells out HALT, H-A, I threw the extra A in there, but it's HALT, H-A-L-T. Too hungry, too angry or anxious, too lonely, or too tired. That's pretty much all of us. And it isn't just food addiction, that's all addiction. And it spells out HALT because you know when I am in these vulnerable situations, I gotta stop. I cannot make a good food choice. But my point is, we all have common triggers, but there are some that are extremely specific to you. And so what just to go back to the journal activity, or the activity that I think is just incredibly important this week because we're going to build on it, it's tracking your specific areas of vulnerability. And I suggested that you have a page or column, probably you need a page, for places and events. For example, if you always eat at a specific ice cream store when you go to a certain place with your family, it's hard to go to that certain place and not eat at that ice cream store. Basically, the eating of the ice cream is so closely tied to that place that you're going that you can't imagine not eating that food. So places, and then events might be it might be going to the movies. Maybe you have never gone to the theater and sat through a 2-hour movie and not gotten snacks. So that could be a place. It can also be an event. An event can be celebratory events, birthday parties, Christmas, Thanksgiving. So have a page for places and events where you're very vulnerable. We talked about times of day, specific times of day. Evening time tends to be a huge trigger for most people. But think about the times of day. I think Julia listed hers, and they were very, very specific, and that was good. But realizing that I might feel strong in the morning, and I might be relying on the strength that I'm feeling about my day, but all of a sudden getting blindsided by temptation and not realizing it's because you moved into a vulnerable part of your day. So it's really important. The next one was feelings. Again, don't say all feelings. Specifically, is it when I am feeling really tired? Is it when I'm feeling overwhelmed with work? Is it when I'm feeling angry? Is it when I'm feeling anxious? Is it when I'm feeling dis-ease or discomfort? Again, my feeling that was sending me to emotionally eat when I was not hungry was unresolved conflict. So a feeling of unresolved conflict is something that was an issue for me. So really dig into that and get as specific, and just try to think of specific instances where you found yourself eating after you said you wouldn't. And then people. Again, people can mean a specific person that triggers you to eat because of a situation, or it can also mean people. When I am around this person, I tend to overeat or eat off plan or not stick to my commitments to myself and my health. I place what they think about my eating above my actual health. We also all have naysayers in our life, and that's something that I'll talk about more. People that just don't get what you do. They don't understand addictions. They're always pushing you to try to moderate because they just don't get it, because they can and you can't. And then, so there's people that push you, and then there's people that eating is literally so closely tied to your time with them that you can't imagine being with them and not eating. Like, the only thing you truly have in common is eating together. I know as I got well and things started to change, there were friends that I kind of lost friendships with because our friendships were not based on anything real. When you start to change your health, and this is someone that you used to always binge with, and you don't have that in common anymore, sometimes you realize there's nothing left to talk about. Or maybe they don't want to be around you because you getting healthy makes them feel weird about their own eating, even if you're not saying anything or talking about it at all. Just your presence does that. So the people one is a very big issue too, and I think that list over time, over even a period of years, you can start to realize, wow, I am really triggered by this. And sometimes you don't even have to be in the person's presence. Like I said, it can be unresolved conflict. You get a phone call from someone that you have sort of bad feelings about, or you know that there's unresolved issues with, and then the next thing you know, you're looking in the refrigerator. So again, this is an incredibly important piece to this whole puzzle of working through these things, is knowing when you're vulnerable. And I would say keep that list open. And as you find yourself standing in front of the refrigerator, as you find yourself super tempted to stop at fast food, even though you know that you don't need to eat, or you have good food at home and you're on the way home, what happened right before you got that strong compulsion? For example, go back to the first thing, places and events. For some people, just being alone in their car is a trigger. They can be fully fed, they get alone in their car, and the next thing they know, because they have had that behavior, that secret eating in their car so often, just being alone in their car itself is a trigger. So they need to know, I'm vulnerable here. And what we are vulnerable to is sabotaging thoughts, and I will get into that next. But I just want to really encourage you to do this, do it well, dig deep, don't just accept surface answers. They're a start, but add to it, peel back those layers, because you need to know so you can be armed. And I'm gonna arm you with information and truth, but before you can use that, you've got to, one, know what your issue is, and that was what all the information about eating disorders was about. I got to know what my issue is, and then second, where am I weak? Where are the weak spots? So anyway, hope you guys have a great day. I'll be back again this week with other lives to talk about a few other things, but I just wanted to make sure that I hit this point home, that is super, super important to know your places of vulnerability. Talk to you soon.